Good morning, and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Albany. My name is Sam Trumbore, and I serve as the minister of this congregation. And I'm so glad to have you here on Easter morning. Happy Easter. And this isn't just Easter. By the way, this is also Passover and Ramadan. These holidays only come together maybe once every 30 or so years. And that's because Ramadan is the 9th month of the Muslim calendar. It lasts for between 29 and 30 days, depending on the rising of the crescent moon. Muslims follow the lunar calendar, so it shifts 11 days earlier every year. For our calendar, that matters for Muslims because fasting during Ramadan is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. People are expected to fast from all food and drink from sunrise to sunset for 30 days. Ramadan in the summer, the days are long and hot in the northern hemisphere, making fasting even harder. The fast is traditionally broken by eating a date. The fasting helps connect people together in mutual suffering, but also in mutual devotion to their faith. It creates deep empathy for those who do not have enough to eat for the rest of the year. Passover and Easter both happen based on the position of the moon too. Easter is set the first Sunday after the full moon that occurs on or after the spring equinox. If the full moon falls on a Sunday, Easter is on the next Sunday. Passover's date is set using the Hebrew calendar. That's also based on the lunar cycle. It starts when the moon is full on the middle of the month of Nisan. That usually happens in March or April. That's why Passover and Easter are usually close together. Passover celebrates the Jewish people's escape from slavery in Egypt. The Passover Seder or dinner is the remembrance of the important part of those stories. The 10 plagues, the eating of bitter herbs and unleavened bread, the parting of the Red Sea, and the 4 important questions that have 4 important answers that children ask. So Moses challenged Pharaoh to let his people go. Jesus challenged the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem to care for the poor and the vulnerable. And Muhammad challenged the leaders of Mecca through receiving a divine revelation that saw all people as equal and commanded care for the poor, the widow, and the orphan. And as Muhammad was also an orphan. Muhammad, Moses, and Jesus, peace be upon all of them, all worship the same God. So it is very appropriate that we dedicate our Easter service to these 3 Abrahamic religious traditions that are also sources of Unitarian Universalism as we join together in the celebration of life. And this morning we have Katie Myers, who's going to play for us the Rainbow Connection. Thank you.
Just checking if the mic is on. Wow, it is. I'm so loud. Okay. Why are there but only illusions. Rainbows have nothing to hide. So we've been told, and some choose to believe it. I know the wrong way to see. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. Who said that every wish would be heard and answered when wished on a morning star? Somebody thought of that, and someone believed it. Look what it's done so far. What's so amazing that keeps us stargazing? What do we think we might see? Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. All of us under its spell. We know that it's probably magic. Have you been half asleep? And have you heard voices? I've heard them calling my name. Is it the sweet song that calls the young sailors? The voice may be one and the same. I've heard it too many times to ignore it. It's something that I'm supposed to be. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. La da 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 dum. La da 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 dee.
Thank you, Katie. And we're going to light our chalice now. And you'll see some words that we like to use for our chalice lighting. If you could join me in those words as we light our chalice. Welcoming all free seekers of truth and meaning, we gather to excite the human spirit, to inspire its growth and development, to respond morally and ethically to a troubled world, and to sustain a vital and nurturing religious community. Let us sing together. Oh, give us pleasure in the flowers today. We don't always sing these words, but the tune you'll recognize. Our wisdom story today is about an old Ukrainian woman who makes very special Easter eggs. They're called Pisanka or Pisanki Easter eggs. That means that Pisanki means to write. And these eggs are a very, very old tradition that goes back thousands of years, actually before the time of Jesus. To make these eggs, actually, if you want to show the first picture, Well, actually, no, on the screen here, not you. We're going to hear from Tina very soon. These are a couple, just some of what these eggs look like. You can see there's a church, and there's some designs over here. If you go to the next slide, it shows you the pens that you use to make these. The pens, the way that you make these eggs is you put little dots of wax or lines of wax, but they're very thin lines. And so you need a tool that can hold the hot wax, but then funnel it down to a point. And so you can see that these tools have that. So you would dip the wax with the tool, and then it comes down to a point, and then you would touch the point to the egg. There are many different styles of eggs, and the subjects can be different too. And I wanted to show you some of the variety of the next slide. You can see sometimes there are flowers, and they do different kinds of plants in the eggs, or there'll be birds. You can see the one on the top, middle and the top there has birds, and then there's some designs that are more they're more geometric in form. I wanted to give you a chance to see these eggs up close before we get into the story, because we've got great pictures in the story, but you can't see the eggs in the pictures. And I want to introduce Tina Hawk, who's a member of our congregation, who's volunteered to tell the story this morning, because our religious education director is away. Elizabeth is on vacation this week with her family. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Tina. And if any children are here, I don't know if I see it. Well, I had hoped to have some interaction with children, but you're out there. So, how many of you really think that goose laid eggs that were so beautiful and intricate? I don't see a lot of hands going up. Well, I do see Eric. Okay, Eric's a believer back there. I was thinking about the nature of stories, and that sometimes they have fantastic elements to them. I was thinking about children relevant stories. For example, Frozen, and Ilsa touches things and they freeze. Now, it's kind of a great story device, but does that really happen? Have you ever met anybody that could do that? I've met some people that were pretty cold, but not that cold. And then Spider-Man, he's got that cool device that I don't know how he does this, and he does this thing, and then he can shoot some web, and then he can grab it and swing. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. But one of my favorite when I was a kid, I was of course watching cartoons, and of course many impossible things happen in cartoons. But I always was amazed at the impossibility of everything that happened with the Roadrunner cartoon. All kinds of terrible things happened in that. But then I think about how we are, and children too, telling stories where we hear something that happens, or we watch something that happens, and then we tell the story, but we don't tell it maybe exactly the way it happened. Maybe we magnify a little bit something that happened, make it something a little bigger, more fantastic, or maybe we even throw in something that didn't actually happen, but make the story that much better. We're not always super careful about getting the facts exactly right, because we know it's a story. And stories don't have to be literally true to be meaningful, to be something that we can learn from, and something that might inspire us too. So let's take that attitude. Let's take that attitude to the Easter story. Now, for Christians, Easter is the big holiday. This is a very, very important holiday for Christians because they believe that Jesus died on the cross. He was killed by the Romans and taken down and then put in a tomb. And a big stone was rolled in front of that tomb. And then when people went back, it was the women who went back first because they were going to take care of his body and cleanse it for burial. But they saw that the stone was rolled back. It was a heavy stone. I couldn't imagine that happening. And then they looked inside and no one was there. We have a little mystery about what happened. Now, what we get from the Bible is there are stories about people seeing Jesus after he died. And we have stories of two people walking along the road and somebody comes up and starts talking to them. And then he breaks bread and they recognize him as Jesus. And then he disappears. We have a lot of questions about this, but the core article of faith for Christians is that he came back to life. This is problematic for early Unitarians who believed in science. They struggled with this because they weren't so sure if that's what actually happened. Now, there are UUs who are Christians who believe this is what happened. And there are Unitarian Universalists who don't believe this is what happened. Our congregation is such that we welcome people who believe and people who don't believe. We are a welcoming congregation who welcome everyone. So how do we hold those two together when one thing is so important in one religious tradition and one thing is something that maybe we're not so sure about? And if you are a Muslim or a Jew, especially if you're a Jew, you don't believe in the resurrection. You might honor Jesus as a rabbi, but you don't believe in the resurrection. And the same thing with Muslims who believe in one God, and so they don't believe in the Trinity, similar to some Unitarian Universalists. So how do we put that all together? How do we be a one faith if we have different faiths? Well, I'd like to say today that if we take the story and we work with the story, we don't need to know the answers to these questions. Just like we don't need to know in this story whether that goose actually laid eggs that had those patterns on them. We don't need to have an answer to that question, because we can take meaning from that story. We can take a lesson from that story, and we can take inspiration. Here's the meaning that I take from the story of Easter. I take the inspiration, the meaning that death can't kill the Spirit. The Spirit of Jesus is alive today. The teachings that he had are alive today. So the meaning of his life comes to us today. I can learn something from Jesus' story. Learn something about how to deal with oppression, how to deal with things that are wrong in the world, and how to have courage to do something about it. And I can take inspiration from Jesus' love for humanity. And the critical message that comes again and again is the renewal of life that keeps happening again and again, year after year. Continuing with this, kind of bringing these three traditions together, I wanted to do a spoken meditation from the three traditions, taking some words that are beautiful words that you'll find in each one. And the ones that I'm going to take from the Jewish tradition is the Shema, which is, "Hear, O Israel, God, the one God is your God, God is one." And it's Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Ehad. From the Christian tradition, these words, and this is from a translation of the Lord's Prayer that is done by Neil Douglas Klotz, which is from the Aramaic, Syrian Aramaic, I guess. And he does this beautiful translation of these words that I think are very Unitarian Universalist. And there's a link there if you want to try to find it. It's called the Aramaic Lord's Prayer. And the first line, I think, is just so beautiful. Abun Dabashmaya, Abun Dabashmaya, which means, "O birther, father, mother of the cosmos, you create all that moves in light." It's a beautiful translation of the first line of the Jesus prayer. And then from the Islamic, 4 phrases or 4 words. The first one, Subhanallah, Subhanallah, which is to express strong feelings of joy or relief. And Alhamdulillah, which is like praise, hallelujah. And then Astaghfirullah, Astaghfirullah, which means I seek forgiveness from God. And then Allahu Akbar, which is unfortunately...
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
I don't know if Allahu Akbar has a connection with Zoom or not, but here we go. C'est la vie. At any rate, Allahu Akbar unfortunately has been used by people very badly, but it is one of the most beautiful phrases. Is just that the celebration of God. God is the greatest. So these 4 phrases, and so I'm going to say each one a couple of times, and you can turn inward, and then we'll have them up for the silent meditation so you can contemplate them and maybe say them silently to yourself as well, if any of them really strike you as ones that you feel meaningful.
*6.
Good morning. I'm Sharon Babila, and I am the service associate today. An important way we celebrate life each Sunday is by offering an opportunity to practice generosity. Members and friends support our congregation with an annual pledge paid throughout the year. Another way to support the good work of this congregation is by making a generous contribution as we pass the plate, or via one of the options shown on this next slide. If you are joining us virtually, you can click on the tiny URL link in the chat window to contribute, or you can send a text to the number shown on the screen. The examples on the slide show how to label your text to indicate the amount and purpose and intent of your gift. We must now say goodbye to our Facebook friends. Consider joining us on Zoom next time, or visit us in person at 405 Washington Avenue in Albany. You can find more information at albanyuu.org.
For all the joys and sorrows that have been left unspoken, let us hold all that we've heard and felt in our hearts. And I'll move one stone for that. Let us turn inward for this prayer of affirmation. Spirit of life and love, today we celebrate the triumph of life over death. The body can be killed, but the spirit cannot be quenched. Only yesterday, the promise of the coming divine realm seemed impossible. Today, we are renewed and inspired as we realize it is now already here. This morning, we remember the pain and suffering can be scary underground passageways to more abundant life if we have the courage to face our fear and crawl through them. This morning, we renew our dedication to act from our love rather than fear. We renew our faith in the inherent worth and dignity of all humanity and seek the courage to face the troubles which may come our way. In our moments of setbacks and defeats, may we turn away from the paths of denial, revenge, and cynicism. May we remember the eternal truth spun into the web of life. The transformation of suffering through love can reveal wisdom embedded in the story of Jesus' resurrection. Let us celebrate together this morning the one who never gives up, even in the darkest night of winter. Our precious blue-green planet Earth, resurrected anew each spring. So be it, and let us sing together. Lo, the earth awakes again. And Randy's going to be our song leader.
As we extinguish the chalice, please join in the word shown on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Whether you celebrate Easter, Passover, Ramadan, the happiness of spring, or just the joy of this day, may we do it together in community. May our lives, these precious lives we have, be of service to each other and the earth. Peace, shalom, salam. I have to move this so I can see. I can see now. Acknowledgements. Our thanks to musicians Randy Rosette, Lois Bailey, Katie Myers, and Isaac Allen. Our ushers today, Kristen Abbas, Kathy Harris, Sandy Stone, Pastoral Care Associates, Donna Meitzner, Eric Van Housen. Service Associate, Sharon Babila. Welcomers, Amy Lent and Don Odell. Our greeter, Jean Bolgatz. Office support, Tammy Goddard, Patience Pichette. Technical support, Chris Jensen, and Dick Dana. Flowers are given and arranged by Sandy and David Stone, welcoming spring and renewal. Now this is a challenge. All right, I'm going down. Because I can't see it. The Unitarian Universalist Society of Schenectady has spots available in their grade 11-12, Our Whole Lives, or AL program, beginning 4/23. Registration deadline is Monday, 4/18. Please contact Paula Brewer at pbrewer@albanyuu.org for more information. The Social Justice Team meets on Tuesday, April 19th at 6:45 on Zoom. All are welcome to join. Find the link in the weekly email. Memorial service for Richard Brewer. The memorial service will be held on Saturday, April 23rd at 2 p.m. in Community Hall, right here, followed by a reception in Channing Hall. A memorial service for Tom Hoteling. A memorial will be held on Saturday, April 30th at 1 p.m. in Community Hall, also followed by a reception in Channing Hall. Contributions of finger foods for the reception of both memorial services are welcome. We do have permission to use the U Albany Hawley parking lot for both events. Use this link to join either memorial service remotely. It's the tiny URL for Albany UU-memorial. For the Sunday Earth Day service on April 24th, the Green Sanctuary Committee is putting together a slideshow of personal actions being taken by Albany UU folks to address climate change. If you can, take a photo, picture, and/or write a description of what you are doing. Please send them to Reverend Sam at minister@albanyuu.org. Important staff notes: Tammy Goddard, church administrator, will be out of town until April 19th and returning to the office on April 20th. Elizabeth Baldes, acting director of religious education, will be out of town until April 25th. And to receive Albany UU e-news, contact Tammy Goddard at admin@albanyuu.org.